It's time. And somehow there's a lot to talk about and not a whole lot to talk about. But it doesn't mean that we're not going to go through it. And I want to start with something that I found surprisingly to be one of the most interesting things of this entire panel, and that is the world of 3A with their Blitzwing, or as we call him, Starscream, because he looks like Starscream. But the only reason why I bring this up, and I'm very open to be wrong here, don't get me wrong, or get me wrong, maybe that's the joke of the play on words there, is this the first time that we've seen official licensed third-party products in the third-party panel? If it is, I find that interesting. I also find it telling, but more on that later. My thoughts on this is that it looks great, and that is to say it looks just like it's supposed to, and it's probably built well given my limited but recent interaction with 3A products. And then we have Banana Force, which, that name, Mac, yikes. But they have a whole bunch of RID or car robots, non-transforming stuff coming. I am anxious to take a look at this stuff because I know that these kind of more niche elements of the Transformer fandom have kind of wanted some representation with third party, and I think that this isn't a terrible way to do it. I know people feel a way about non-transforming stuff, and I'm sorry they feel that way, but it doesn't change the fact that I think this is an interesting way to do it, and I want to see how it shapes up and out. And I think the Diatlas looks good for what it's worth. Then we have Half the Battle Toys. And I mentioned here that one of the people from them had contacted me and let me know that they were going to be working on some G.I. Joe Transformer stuff. And here it is. We have a Soundwave looking character that turns into a Hiss tank. I think this is a super cool idea. I'm not sure how successful it's going to be. There is the chance that it could double tap both fandoms. There's also a chance that both fandoms could be like, not close enough to the mark for me. I'm going to let it go. So I wish them the best, but I got to see how it performs and I want to see how it shapes up. So hopefully I'll get the opportunity to. I do think it's an interesting concept. I do think that Transformers and G.I. Joe kind of go together. They just kind of always have. So I think it's a logical kind of train of thought to follow. I'm just curious how it'll all shape up, and then I'm curious how the real reaction will be. And when I mean the real reaction, I don't mean people saying, that looks cool. I mean people speaking with their wallets and saying, that looks cool. We then got to look at a New Age Megatron, and we don't get enough to really make sort of any kind of real opinions on it, but with New Age's success recently, and with New Age's popularity as of late, I am curious to see what they'll do. And I like these little prop and diorama things they've been adding. I think that's a really cool thing, like the little Lincoln Memorial bit. Like that's a really cool element to add to kind of a display. So I applaud that effort as well. Planet X didn't really show anything we hadn't seen, however, but I gotta say, looking at their work kind of together, it is impressive. It is impressive what they've done. They've really captured the look of that game into a kind of fulfilled line of figures to represent that game. That's really an achievement, and I feel like they don't get the credit they deserve for doing that, but I'm here to give them some flowers while they can smell them. I think they should be proud of themselves, honestly. I know that sounds condescending, but I don't mean it that way. I really do. We also got a new company coming in, Civil Warrior, and they give a whole bunch of stats, including that this prime that they have from the Dreamwave era is going to be about 25 centimeters, which is roughly about 9 inches, with 30 points of articulation, LED lights on the chest. It's supposed to come out the fourth quarter this year, and it transforms if we're to take the pictures to heart. And it looks promising. I don't know if it'll be able to beat the other one. That other one was done really well, but I think it might be gone. And then they have Transproject. I'm guessing it's the same company because they give the same basic kind of stats, and then they give a look at their Primal, which doesn't look as good as the Generation toys to me, and at least in the schematic kind of, line work layout. It's like Unicron got a hold of this thing. But who's to say? I'm gonna give them a fair shake, and I'm looking forward to taking a look at some of that as well. The Gorilla mode in particular looks bad to me. And then we got Fanshobby putting out a bunch of stuff that I gotta be honest with you, I just don't have any interest in. I'm only mentioning it because they put out volume at this show where a lot of companies didn't, but it just doesn't, it's just too far left to center for me. For the people that are into this, like, that's cool that you're getting it. I know there's like Minerva fans out there that are super into Minerva, and that's cool. I'm happy for you guys. It's just too far outside of my wheelhouse for me to really appreciate, but I do applaud them for taking a risk, taking a chance, and finding a niche. So I do applaud that. And everything they've done has kind of been built as to a quality standard that I think is, if you're into these characters or whatever, that you'll be happy with what you get based on the previous releases. And then we have X-Transbots, who showed nothing, but they're not the only ones. At least they had the courage to put in a few slides of stuff we already knew was coming. Plenty of companies we just didn't hear anything from. Gigapower, Unique Toys, DX9, Magic Square, etc., etc. And then we got a look at MMC. Nothing really new in the reformatted line, but we did get the one look at the Ocular Max remix line. All 4 Autobot tapes. tapes revealed heavily in one fell swoop. Now, we'd seen the ram horn before, but this is everything. We're getting all 4. I don't know if they're going to do any of the tapes beyond the big 4 of both Autobot and Decepticon, but at least we're getting the big 4. At least it's season 1 and 2 that we can check off our list, have confidence that it's coming, and take pride. And like, they look fantastic. I have no reason to think they won't be built to the same standard that we've kind of come to expect, that has been of quality. So I'm quite happy to see this. I think that they've killed these tapes in the past. Like, they've just done a tremendous job, and I think these look good. These look real good, and like the pose picture with like the CAD stuff, like it all works. Bravo. They should have put this on the, well, I don't know, I think the other one sold fairly well. They should have moved these up because they know what they're doing here. They've got a formula and it works, and they thought outside the box in order to do it. So I can't say enough good about it. But that's the only thing new that they showed also, and that's the only thing new from any of these companies, with one exception. Fanstoys. And they started out with what they started out with, which is their Soundwave. But the changes here are drastic. Almost entirely gone is all of the line work. And you know I like their line work. However, I also have to say that the proportions and sophistication that we've kind of come to expect from this company is now in this more present form. That being said, the line work, it's not minimal. It's almost non-existent. It's almost like they're trying to do what Takara is doing, and I don't care for that. I know a lot of people do, but I don't care for it. I like what they've kind of been doing up until this point. This might be something that we look back on as a changing point for Fanstoys. Now, they're also giving us the cassettes, which I think is a smart move, with Laserbeak, Ravage, and Rumble and Frenzy. Rumble is blue, Frenzy is red, just in case you weren't clear. And they all look good. I think of them, Ravage is the least well done, but I also think he's the most difficult to do, so I get it. And Soundwave looks good. I gotta see final images and stuff. If I get this Soundwave, it'll be because I've just decided to just collect everything they put out. And if I don't get it, it'll be because it doesn't work for me. The Takara Soundwave is still probably my favorite official MP release to date, so it's got to really swing for the fences with this one. That being said, they also showed their blaster. Now, this is some of their first releases, and it does give me a lot of hope that some of these other figures, such as the Trailbreaker and one other one here that we'll talk about in a second, will eventually see the light of day. Because what's going to happen is it's going to get to a point where there's not going to be one figure that they've teased that they haven't put out. And when that's said and done, it's going to be really hard to have that criticism of them. But the other one that we need to talk about is Blitzwing. And this Blitzwing doesn't look a whole lot different to me than their initial. In fact, I think I could make the argument that the initial looks cleaner than this one. And the initial also made it to the prototype stage, so it was far along. And people were saying that they weren't happy with it and they were going back to redesign it. And I had heard that there was also fear of a Takara one coming. But with this, it definitely looks like they just went back and redesigned it because they weren't happy with it, which does give me the feeling that this company does take pride in what they were doing. They weren't satisfied with the results that they had, and they went back to the drawing board. There's obvious changes here that you can see. I just don't think they're like as huge as we perhaps are suggesting. Maybe it's because the differences between the sound waves are so huge that we're kind of rolling that idea into this, but this one doesn't seem to be as significant. However, it still looks great to me, and the alt modes look amazing, in particular the jet mode, but the tank mode does as well. And usually we have this thing with third party, right, where we say you have to sacrifice one of the modes for the triple changer. I don't see a sacrifice here, and I don't see it really with Astro Train either at this point. I think they did it. I think they actually did it, but we'll have to wait and see. We all know pictures can be deceiving. Then there's Spindrift 2.0. This is a catch-22, because on one hand it suggests that they know that their initial release wasn't well received by a majority of the fandom because it strayed too far from the G1 model. So what did they do? They made another one. So what happens now? You get half the people saying, oh, they knew it was terrible, that's why they put out another one. And you get the other half of the people saying, oh, they finally made the one I want. So there's no way to please them all here. I think it looks good. I think it's funny that they put it out right before X-Transbots is getting ready to release Neptune. I'm sure that that puts them in a pinch. But there is a question as to whether or not they are listening to the fans or whether or not they are looking at their own perhaps perceived failure. Either way, it doesn't matter. If you're you're happy with the initial Spindrift, you don't have to get this one. If you're happier with this one, you gotta get this one. Or you don't. Up to you. You're in charge. You're the king of your own castle, my friend. But it does look much more toon accurate. That much is for sure. And somehow I do feel like they managed to make it look less tubby and more heroic. So I dig that as well. I might get this. I was actually like really close to pre-ordering the Neptune just recently, but now I'm not going to personally. And then they show a picture of him with Huffer and Cliffjumper. And I think at this point, it's just safe to say, dude, I think Fanstoys is just planning on doing all the characters from season 1 and season 2 at minimum. I just get that impression. I just think this was a statement to the rest of the world within the fandom saying, we don't care. We don't care what anyone else has done. We're not worried about what anyone else is doing. We're going to make the characters that we want to make and love, and we don't care who they're competing with. And I think they're going to reap the rewards of it. However, there's a lot about this panel that suggests this current state of third party that we do need to have a conversation about one day. I'm just not sure if you guys are ready to hear it yet, but we'll see. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.